which means if your parents were morons, you're probably a moron too. It is, I don't know, fall. I apologize for any gross sounds that come out of my mouth or my body or my head or whatever else. I want to say this is how my brain works, but I think the definition of works is negated by what I'm about to say. I'm happy to report that I still don't like the idea. That's not them, that's me. Big, beautiful bill, which is just absolutely just making me want to vomit. Not to, fillet myself here at all. Since you didn't ask about that, I'll stop talking about that.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome one and all to the Hard Rock Lunchbox. And of course, if you're watching on Strangerhood TV on YouTube, welcome to the top 20. It is, I don't know, fall. I don't know what's going on outside. It's May 22nd, 2025. You would not know that by looking at it. You certainly would not know it by listening to the sound of my voice, which is just absolutely atrocious. So I'm just going to apologize for that right now. As bad as all of this normally is, now the inside is just equally as bad as the outside. So as bad as I'm looking currently is as bad as I feel on the inside. So I apologize for any gross sounds that come out of my mouth or my body or my head or whatever else you might be offended by. That's completely fine with me. I'm not digging it. I am sorry I am late. I wanted to start the show off with the brand new Oswald's Revenge song, which is going to be coming out tomorrow. But I kept having a reminder pop. This is how... I mean, I want to say this is how my brain works, but I think the definition of works is negated by what I'm about to say. So I had a reminder keep popping up. It's like, Oswald's Revenge, Idiot's Anthem. And I was like, okay, well, I just kept snoozing it until today. And then today I was like, well, I already got it. I played it last week. And then, so I just, completed the reminder. And I got here and I went to load it up. And I was like, oh, didn't Andy say that was the wrong version? So I had to go get the right version. And that's why I'm late. While technically not Andy's fault, I'm comfortable blaming Andy for it anyway. I'm sure he'd be fine to accept that. That's cool. But that's what took me so long. So I think it'll be worth it. And then maybe we can compare and contrast those two versions. I mean, we're probably not going to do that, but we could if we wanted to. So we have the new version of Idiot's Anthem that'll be out tomorrow. Hopefully it's the correct version. I believe there's some guitar distortion involved, which I'm a huge fan of. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. But let's start off, as always, or as often as we do, with a little light housekeeping. There is a brand new Top 20 out today on Strangerhood TV. It is called Artificial Streams. It is the 226th episode of that ridiculous show. But I do talk about getting the big ding we got from Spotify. That looks like it's going to be part of the permanent collection, and it's just going to bother me every single time I look at it until I start looking at something else. That's sort of too bad for me. I did talk about releasing music on streaming services and, who to call when you don't want help. That would be Verizon and Cablevision. And I did talk a lot about getting notes from my drummer for my lyrics, which is still funny. I was laughing about it just yesterday, as a matter of fact. And it's funny because just my natural state is like, all right, well, let me give it a shot. Let me just see if we can get this done. There's a lot about me personally that, where I'm very quick to say no, because I don't, honestly, I could probably dig into some of it if you wanted, but you don't, and I don't either, so we're not going to. But there's a lot to be said for, my personality. I don't think it comes as any surprise to anybody in my listening audience that's known me for even more than, say, 3 months, that, I am just generally over busy. I'm just too busy. I'm overscheduled, and I have too much to do. So I have this part of my personality that just really gets very, it's not aggressive, but, I really just don't like when people are in my way. And it manifests itself, Okay, let me walk that back just a quick second. I don't like when people are in my way when I'm in a hurry or I'm on my way to do something, right? Like, so like if I'm out shopping and I don't really have like a deadline or whatever, like I don't really care how long the lines are. I don't like when people stop their cart in the middle of an aisle, like in the middle, like literally the middle of an aisle, and then I can't go anywhere because they're completely inconsiderate, which is definitely, there's a lot of that going on in the world, which probably surprises nobody that spends any time at all out in the world. Like, that just bothers me because it's like bad humanity, and I think we'd be a much better, be in a much better situation if we had less people like that, but alas, they, like to make more of them, and so we keep making more of them. But that's a whole other thing. But if I'm just out and about and I don't really have any constraints on my time, then, it doesn't really bother me if things are slow or whatever. But I do have a huge problem when things, like, kind of interrupt. Like, if I'm going to the bathroom and somebody wants to talk to me, like, that bothers me. Like, if I'm trying to get to a show or rehearsal on time and somebody decides that's a good time to just stop in the left lane because they didn't get over to their exit to go to Roosevelt Field Mall soon enough. Like, that kind of bothers me, but it's because I have to be somewhere and because I'm in the process of doing something. So that actually trickles down into, generally speaking, a lot of my responses, my immediate knee-jerk response is just being no. Because it just makes things more difficult. Like, if people are asking stuff of me while I'm in the process of doing something, it's going to make stuff that I'm doing more difficult, more time-consuming, and all that other stuff. So I did try and reflect on getting notes about my lyrics, knowing that about myself. So I actually did try and give the idea a shot, and I'm happy to report that I still don't like the idea, so I'm probably not going to... Oh, sorry for being gross. Yeah, for those of you playing DJ's Medical Maladies at home, I have now morphed whatever this is into a cold. Although I don't think I morphed anything. I think it was more like a value add, like I got it for free. Because now I have a cold, and I think it's all weather related. Honestly, I still have that really nasty cough. I still do not have allergies. I just have a lot of pollen growing, like living in my lungs and stuff. And I'm not special. I think everybody in the Northeast, or a lot of people in the Northeast, are suffering from it. It feels very much like people that live in forest fire zones or volcanic eruption zones, and when there's just particulates in the air, it's just making it very difficult to breathe. I have not been gasping anymore, so I'm super grateful for that. But it is just... I'm on some medicine kind of every day. I was doing expectorants for the last 3 days. Now I'm on sinus medicine because it feels like everything's up here. But since you didn't ask about that, I'll stop talking about that. Just so in other housekeeping, Rebel 9 has a couple of shows coming up. I will be doing Donna's Songwriter Roundtable. I think that's June 12th. That's going to be at McBride's, which feels like it's coming up awfully fast, so I'll have to prepare for that. I've only done like one acoustic unplugged performance since the Long Island Rock Unplugged series ended around COVID. So it's been a minute, and it'll be cool too because I've got a lot of new songs, but that means I have to spend some time coming up with some acoustic versions of this, and also if we're gonna I'm not entirely sure. I'll talk to Donna, but I think it's gonna be closer to just Storyteller than just a straight up unplugged performance, which means I'll have to think about what I want to say, and especially what I don't want to say about whatever songs I decide to perform. But it'll be fun, and I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm super grateful to Donna for taking up the reins, because as much as I wanted to start up an unplugged series again, my inability to do it just sort of speaks to my scheduling and where my head is at most of the time, so I can't seem to get things done. So I'm super glad that she was able to get that done. I think the first one is going to be James, me, and Jimmy, so that should be fun. And then she's got another one. I think it's June 26th. I hope I have that right, unless it's July 26th. I think it's June 26th. I had the flyer, but now I'm just drawing a blank. But I'll be more with the details as we get closer, like I always am. And then, of course, Rebel 9 and Oswald's Revenge are back at Whiskey Rocks on July 11th. We also have a show coming up in Hartford, Connecticut. So if anybody is in Connecticut that wants to check out Revel 9, it has been quite a minute since we've been up there. But that is June 27th, which means the other Songwriter Unplugged is June 26th. So that'll be cool for anybody that's interested in that. Of course, Bacon is My Podcast is still podcasting and still baconing. They talk about, this week, they talk about grammar police and teacher scars. Sorry for being so gross. That's not them, that's me. New York City street food adventures, strip club hot dogs. That seems like a worthwhile listen. And What's Your Bacon in 7 Questions with Jesse Wagner. So definitely check all that out. Always some good programming going on Strangerhood TV, including this show and Everything Bacon, and Everything Oswald's is also over there. So I think that takes care of our light housekeeping. Man. See, at least the breathing isn't me gasping for air at this point. Now it's just being exhausted from, like, trying to breathe, which might not sound like a positive development. You're just going to have to take my word for it that I will just take that over everything else that's going on. So, as I've been trying to do lately, I have been trying to avoid a lot of politics, and that's not even just for the purpose of this show. And you might find this in your own world, right? Like, I definitely have people near me that are very affected by, things that are going on in the world and are ramped up because of things that are going on politically. There's just a lot of nonsense all the time. And as somebody that spends a lot of his time trying to right wrongs in the world, even though nobody asked me to, and certainly nobody appointed me to do it, it is often hard for me to see and experience things that are wrong in the world and not say something and not do something. It happens to be one of the main things I'm currently in therapy for, which is super fun. My just impulsive need to try and right wrongs in the world. And it comes from a place of actual responsibility and being capable of doing something about some stuff. I mean, there are people, I mean, we all know people that are they just receive bad stuff and they just kind of recede into that, and they don't really do anything about it because they feel it's not necessarily like persecuted, but it's like, these things are constantly happening to me. Now, I am somebody that does that, and I view the world very much negatively. Like, things coming at me are always, very hard for me to deal with. I feel like a lot of those things are unfair. And objectively, I think the problem with having some sort of intellect over your behavior is you can objectively explain, like, this is something that's occurring to me. Whether or not it's being done to me, it's occurring to me. And a lot of times I find these things that are just, they don't need to be happening that way. They're something that other people are doing and other people are doing in their lives, but they're having a negative impact on me. Like, where it bothers me is when people don't bother to realize what, how their actions affect other people. Now, I'm super guilty of that too. I do not always see how my actions affect other people. Or, which is more insidious, is that I'll see positives in how my actions affect other people, but I'm missing all the negatives that it's actually bringing. So that kind of sucks to be on that side of it. But as somebody that does receive the world, and I do see these slights and just inconveniences or some real, like, this shouldn't be happening kind of thing. It's hard for me to deal with because in a lot of cases I am actually capable of correcting some of those things. And that was the difference I was trying to get to, where some people just just take it and they recede and they recede. Historically, I'm somebody that will try and move mountains to avoid these things. And the biggest thing I do is I try and sidestep a lot of stuff. So, just like in The Karate Kid when he says, best way to avoid a punch is to be there. Like, I live my life very much like that. I see, and I do not play chess, but I do see things, how they line up, because I have lived, I'm about 472 years old at this point, so I've lived a bit of a life, so I do have experience enough. And I also happen to be a big student of human psychology and sociology in general, so I understand how people react in certain situations. So while I do still get surprised by people's actions, especially when they are completely inconsiderate and like ignoring of the ramifications of their actions, I am not often surprised by what people do as I see things line up in the world. So what I will try and do is I will try and just sort of sidestep things. But there are times in your life and in my life where you just simply cannot do that. Things are way bigger than you, and there is just absolutely nothing you can do about them. And even if you do try, it becomes amazing to me that I'm not able to fix some of these things. And that long-ass intro is why I have kind of stepped back as much as I have on the political realm. I have tried to be plugged in enough to kind of know what's going on, and then been, historically, it would be something I would address in whatever social public platform I have to try and correct these things, to try and explain why this is wrong or why I think this is wrong or whatever the reason actually is. And I was doing that forever, and that just was frustrating and got nowhere and cost me a lot of things in a lot of ways. So then I started reserving it for just super egregious things that I thought I could explain. And, I even did that recently where I was talking about this big, beautiful bill, which is just absolutely just making me want to vomit, even just hearing it, that's made its way through the House now because they voted on it. It passed by one vote in in the House. Excuse me. And I've been trying to point out, not that it affects me directly, but I've been trying to point out that for months and even pre-election, the Trump administration and House Republicans were saying that we weren't going to take any cuts into Medicaid or whatever. Well, sure enough, we all thought, or not we, but like those of us that are aware of people when they lie like that, were completely unsurprised when it turns out that there are actual Medicare cuts. There's about somewhere between $500 million and $1 trillion over the next several years of cuts to Medicaid and like stuff like SNAP. SNAP is food stamps, which is one of the greatest social programs we've ever had, because even at its core, it's basically providing basic essentials, basic food for people that can't afford it, because in this country, that's what we do. I say it all the time. We are not a society that lets people just die in the streets because they don't have enough food. But now it looks like we're actually turning into it. And the biggest part about SNAP that's interesting is SNAP is one of the most successful social and economic programs the government has ever done, because for every dollar we spend giving money to people to buy food, we actually create between $1.50 to $3 in economic activity, because they go to the store, they buy something, and that's sales tax, that's paying people to work at the stores, it's paying the providers like farmers or manufacturers, so it's a really good stimulative program, and the fact that Republicans want to cut it are just ridiculous. But I had posted, I think yesterday, like, here's the reporting that this is actually going to happen, and I still have MAGA Republicans that are telling me it's fake news. And I know that we deal with the Dunning-Kruger effect, and people just hate being told that they're wrong and believing that they're wrong, but we are in such an age of this absolute moron confidence that people that are clearly stupid or misinformed or malinformed keep insisting that they're right. And as I keep saying, and this is not to fillet myself here at all, but as I keep saying, every single person, every single MAGA Republican I argue with, I dwarf in intellect and intelligence. This is not conceit. This is not arrogance. This is objectively true. And the simple fact that these, and I'm going to say it, these absolute retards of human beings that cannot understand these simplest things that are going on in front of them are insisting that they are correct about stuff that they have no chance of being correct about. Even if they were correct, they're not smart enough to understand about the stuff that they think they're correct about, because they're hearing it from other people, or they're hearing it from Fox News, or God help them if they're hearing it from OAN or something like Breitbart, or if the Judge Report still exists. They're getting misinformation that kind of aligns with what they're thinking, so they think that they're right. I have news for you, and I've been saying it for a decade. If you are incapable of getting a C or higher on a book report in school, do not think for 1 second that you can challenge me or others like me intellectually about understanding the world around us. We are smarter than you, and that is unfortunate for you. But if you have a problem with that, you can take it up with your school system and your local school board, but you should definitely take it up with your parents, because a lot of intellect comes right from your genetics, which means if your parents were morons, you're probably a moron too. And that sucks, and I'm sorry, but it's not my fault, and I would like it to stop being my problem. So if you could just maybe take a step back and look at what your actual high school grades were for a second and realize, hey man, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am, might be the actual smartest thing that you've done today. So that's all I have to say. Like, I would appreciate all the retards out there understanding that they are remedial at best, and they should defer to people that are smarter than them. I'm not making subjective claims. I'm not writing an op-ed. I am capable of understanding the English language and reading a bill as it makes its way through Congress. And if you don't think that these things are there, then hire a fourth grader with a good ability to read them to you. And then maybe you'll start understanding the stuff that I'm talking about. So I'm done talking about morons and retards, and now I want to move on to idiots, because as I said, Oswald's Revenge has a brand new song coming out, and while I did preview it and premiere it last week, apparently I grabbed the wrong version. It was no fault of my own. Andy and I agreed. It was confusing at best, and I did the best I could, which is what I always tend to do. But now I think I have the appropriate and correct version of Idiot's Anthem, which does indeed come out tomorrow, but I'm going to premiere this again because why not? So let's get on with the show, shall we? And we'll start it off with, like I said, the brand new Oswald's Revenge and the proper version of Idiot's Anthem. Got it for you now on the box.
Heard the TV say feel devoured by the foe. What was once your friend just won't be that anymore.